Annie. We're all set?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the May 28th meeting of the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee. We have 4 members in person and 4 on Zoom. Counting is hard. So we have quorum, we are ready to go, and we do have some new faces, both new members and guests here, so I'd like to start with some brief introductions. Can we go around and have everyone just share your name and pronouns, or however you want to be referred to, your role or roles that you feel are relevant, and one thing you do when it's rainy. Keep it brief. I'll start and then pass it to the folks on Zoom. And when you're done, could you also name who goes next, because there's no natural order on the Zoom. My name is Veronica Pillar. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am a county legislator and also chair of this advisory committee. Very excited to see new people. And when it rains, I try to remember to use my sun lamp to keep my mood up. And I will pass it to Carmen.
Hello, I'm Carmen Arroyo. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the sole employee of the Office of Human Rights. I'm very excited to be here, and when it rains, I love to stay indoors, watch TV or something like that. I'll pass it to Lillian.
We cannot hear you. Still nothing. I feel like this happened before and you fixed it. Would you like us to go to someone else and come back to you? All right. How about Nick?
Sure. Hi, my name is Nick Bennett. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am a screenwriting and film professor at Ithaca College, but I worked as the communications specialist for Tompkins Workforce for a short while, and was on Jedi and have been on WDIC for a couple years now. The rainy day, I like to spend rainy days with my cats. And I'll pass it to Joan.
Oh, thanks, Nick. My name's Joan Jerkowicz. I'm a former county employee and member of Jedi. Just sticking my face in today to have a comment on one of the agenda items. And on a rainy day, I like to curl up on the couch with a good book. I wish I could play with my cats, but they just sleep all day, so there's no fun there. Pass it to John.
Good afternoon, everybody. Don Halachik, Assistant Director of 911 for the Department of Emergency Response. I'm also a board member for Suicide Prevention and Crisis Services, and serve as a panel member and advocate for the Surrogate Decision-Making Committee of the State of New York for end-of-life decisions. And on a rainy day, I like to sleep in late when I can. And I will pass it, hopefully, back to Lillian.
Oh, okay. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. I'm Lillian Isaacs. I work for Tompkins County ITS. I'm the information security analyst there. What do I like to do on a rainy day? I don't know. I'm gardening because it loosens up the soil a bit. Awesome. And I'll pass the torch to Nick. No, Nick already went. And Corman.
Thanks, Lillian. Annie Corman, County Legislator. I use the pronouns she and her. And on rainy days, I like to play with my cats, but it's true that they do just like to hibernate and sleep. And if they won't play with me, then I complain about the rain or take a bath. And I'll pass it to Rob, who's on Zoom.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Rob Brown, community member appointee to WDIC from Lansing. In my day job, I'm the finance director for Cornell Cooperative Extension of Tompkins County. I'm also a board member for the Community Foundation of Tompkins County. My pronouns are he, she, and they. And on a rainy day, I like to pretend in polite speech that I dislike it, but also secretly enjoy it. Oh, who am I passing it to? Who hasn't gone yet?
Everyone on Zoom has gone, and you may not be able to see the folks in the room, so I'll send it to Charlene.
Hi, everyone. Charlene Holmes, Chief Equity and Diversity Officer for the county. A rainy day is a good burrito day in a blanket with my remote control in this hand specifically. That's what I like. And I also like to be in the rain. So it's an awkward thing. But yeah, I will pass it to Rachel.
Hey everybody, Rachel Graham, Deputy County Clerk and Chair of JEDI. She, her pronouns on a rainy day. I guess I like to squeeze in a workout if I'm not outside doing something fun in the sun. Yeah, and I'll pass it to Shauna. You haven't gone yet, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you. I am Shauna Black. I am on the legislature, and my pronouns are she, her. And one of the things that I like to do on a rainy day is absolutely unwind and do nothing. My family, we kind of go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's kind of just our time to get back to the basics. We play board games and watch TV, and I love unplanned time, so it's my favorite. I'll pass it on to Mike Sigler.
Hi, Mike Sigler, Tompkins County Legislator, Town of Lansing. I'm just in visiting today. I had some other stuff to do, but the meeting's starting, and that's great. I get to listen in. On a rainy day, I like to hike in the woods, actually. I like the sound that the raindrops make on the leaves. So.
Awesome. And that leaves Jordan, who I don't let hide in the corner.
I'm Jordan Cree. My pronouns are she, her. I am the sitting clerk for the advisory committee and try to keep your agenda in order. And on a rainy day, I put rain boots on my 4-year-old because rain does not stop anyone.
Awesome. Thank you. None of this happens without Jordan. All right. Welcome, everybody. Next is changes to the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Not seeing any. Moving on to the chair's report. Actually, could we do minutes first? I guess that's a change to the agenda, just because it's quick. So we've got the minutes for March 26, 2025. Could I get a mover for those? Rachel moves. Annie seconds. Comments, changes, etc. All right, with that, we'll vote. They'll all be roll call votes because we are mixed in person and on Zoom, and I will go to Zoom first and try to keep more or less the same order. John. We could not hear you, or I could not.
Yes.
Carmen.
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
Lillian.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Shauna.
Yes.
Rachel. Yes. Annie.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes unanimously. Minutes are approved. All right. Chair's report. The only item I have is going back to the Leslyn McBean Claiborne Strength and Diversity Award, which was awarded once to Leslyn McBean Claiborne, and then we never quite got it off of the ground. For those, off the ground after that. For those who don't know, this Leslyn McBean Claiborne was a member of the legislature for 20 years, chair of it for 2 years, longtime and current president of the director of the Greater Ithaca Activities Center, and really just a huge force for diversity and equity in our community. And so upon her retirement from the legislature, the WDIC, which I was not on yet, but WDIC at the time created this award to honor Leslyn directly and her legacy going forward, to continue to honor people making similarly strong contributions to our community in their own ways. Specifically, and I'm reading a blurb from the website, the Strength and Diversity Award seeks to recognize individuals, community groups, nonprofit organizations, and businesses within the Tompkins County boundary that have demonstrated outstanding achievements, a sustained commitment to the pursuit of cultural diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, and advocacy of basic civil and human rights in our community. And Jordan, actually, can I share my screen briefly? I just want to share the website page, which is here. This is my first time doing this in a legislature meeting. Ah, okay, it looks fine. So where we are, and I share this so it's easier for folks to find it later, hopefully, is we are on the Tompkins County website in the Equity and Diversity section, which can be found under About from the homepage, and down on the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee. And the Strength and Diversity Award description has been here the whole time. A form for nominating people has also been here for quite some time, but not advertised in a while. You can also click through to get a full description of the award, which I'm not going to go through the whole thing now, but they've got background, the purpose, and a lot more specific criteria to help folks think about who should be recognized for that. All right, so I'll stop sharing. One of our goals for this year was to both award it again, and more importantly, create a clear process for awarding it so that it can, so that we don't have to go through a trying things from scratch thing each year. So, I guess, Robert.
Okay, I remember the process we followed last time. We moved it forward because I was one of the people who dropped the ball, fair confession. I think that during our process that time, workshopping the criteria for the award, we did a pretty good job. That doesn't mean we shouldn't revisit it and make sure that still aligns with our current purposes, but I think we did some pretty good workshopping there. Where we slipped came to 2 points, in my opinion, which is not the only one. But those points, as I see them, are we didn't clearly establish our expectation for who was on the review committee for receiving nominations. We had some confusion as to how we wanted to compose it. Did we want a minimum, like what was our target size for the committee? What proportion of community representatives relative to elected officials or county employees did we want to have in that number? And then the second part was the other weakness that I think we had was in how we pushed out to the community the fact that we were seeking nominations for the award in the first place. So I would think that our practical way of achieving our goal would be to do a dust off of our criteria, either immediately before or in conjunction with developing our review team, and then really promoting hey, if you think there's somebody in this community who fulfills the ideals represented by this award, please nominate them. We're hungry to recognize them.
Thank you. That matches my memories of shortcomings previously as well. John and then Shauna.
So, Veronica, when you were reading the potential...
John, I'm sorry, you're a bit quiet and choppy audio-wise.
How about now?
Maybe better?
Let me, hang on 1 second. I just may have too many windows in there. Draining. AC here.
Sounds similar. I mean, we can probably understand you.
So my question was, when you were reading the criteria in the beginning, it was not limited to an individual. It was limited, or it was expansive and inclusive of a potential agency or entity. I just want to make that clear that that is, in fact, it's a wider range and not just limited to a person.
Yes, that is true, and that is something we were very specific about when developing the nomination criteria. Shauna.
I think initially, whenever we're talking about this, the one thing that comes to mind is that we're creating a little bit more work for all of us and like making it perhaps a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. I feel like all of us that are here in this meeting are extensions of our community. And I guess I'm just wondering, we could certainly open it up for nominations, but as I read the description of the award, and I've known Leslyn for many years, and so I do have a great sense of like what her personality and character embodies. I know for me personally, like I could think of 5 people that I would love to bring forward, and so I guess what I'm wondering is if we should move forward within this group to start bringing forth nominees so that we can get the ball rolling instead of having meeting after meeting. Because I know everyone's time is really important.
That's a great idea, I think. I'd still like to also open it to the community, but we don't have, that would save us the figuring out intensive advertising and trying to have it be more wide-reaching than last time.
I don't know if that's something as well, if we bring forth nominations, if we would do that in executive session, or how we could talk about that confidentially, or if it even needs to be confidential. I personally, the people that I would bring forth, I'd be happy talking about any of them in public or private. But the deliberation might need to be behind closed doors.
Yeah, well, the way we had intended to do it previously was have a selection committee that wasn't WDIC, it was just other people. Leslyn was willing to be on it, and we were going to or did invite a few other people. And so the idea was they would deliberate not in a public meeting and be using applications that were sent in, or nominations rather, that were sent in by online form or paper form. So none of it was happening in public just because it didn't have to be. One thing that I know it never occurred to me last time was that I don't know if we should have or offer someone to facilitate the work of the nominating committee And I'd appreciate other thoughts on this. I've never been a award committee selector person, but it does seem like it could be a gap if we invite people to be a committee to select a recipient of an award and then say, now go off and choose the person. You have to figure out yourself logistically how to do that and come back to us. So do folks think we should structure some support there or have a completely different selection process, or what? Annie, and then John.
Yeah, I think it would help, as was said, to have some structure going forward, because we don't have like a plan. We're trying to figure this out right now. I think being almost halfway into the year, I'm thinking maybe to shorten it up is a possibility, that we could have we could have possibly some members of this group, not a quorum, to meet as like a working group, call it a working group, and figure it out. I mean, the criteria, for the awards, is saying one or more, for instance, of, a person, business, group that has one or more of these attributes. So I think at this point, there's going to be some discretion that the group could have. But I think figuring out that some process, the simpler the better. Otherwise, as also was brought up, are we creating a lot of work if we are reaching out to members of the community to do this? That's just an extra step. And if we make it harder, as we've found in other years, then it might not get done. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I'm not saying it has to be that way, but I'm just entertaining that idea. If the simpler we make it, the more of a chance that it's going to get done.
John.
It works this time. Can you hear me good now?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess my question is with the nomination process. So I'd be hesitant for the committee to select the nominees, because it seems to me that the nomination process, in looking at what was originally designed, was for anyone to submit a nomination based on the criteria. I think perhaps the first step is establishing what the window of opportunity for a nomination submission should be. I don't think that should be extensive. And then compiling those nominees, and then whether discussion in public or executive session, I leave that to further discussion. But perhaps, depending on how many individuals are nominated, then submit that down to like a final list of 5, and then evaluate accordingly. Because if we try and advance it from committee as potential candidates, who's going to do the work to compile all those nominations? Because that would be the crucial data that we would rely on for the selection of the recipient. So I'd rather it come organically from those that wish to submit an individual, rather than us trying to define who candidates are and then having to build backwards to create all those criteria that they may be qualified to receive the award.
Thank you.
Veronica?
Yes.
Just as for the executive session, positive or negative, if you're talking about an individual, it would need to go into executive session. At the only point that you could talk about the person is when that person is chosen and they're receiving the award.
Thank you. Yep. Yes. That is good to know. And I'm hoping to, I guess, avoid the need for executive session and have discussions about people not be in the WDIC meetings. I think we have enough here that I would propose, like Annie said, to just have a small working group of this committee figure out a process for this year's nominations and selection of the award and have it completed and brought back to this group for our June meeting. If no objections, who would like to be part of this working group? John, Annie, Robert. Fantastic. I can be as well. Annie, would you be willing to bottom line it? As in like...
Get us all together?
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you so much. All right. Anything else on the award? Just Rachel.
One last thing. I would just suggest if we are going to ask for nominations from the committee, that we figure out the timeline on that. So like maybe we ask Monica to put something out beginning of June and close it by the end of June. So then
by
July.
Committee, do you mean community?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Words.
All
yes. Good. Sorry, community. And then the committee has like July to review those, and maybe June if you get together in June to figure out whatever else needs to be worked out there.
That's a good idea. I might push it further into the future, like have things open till the end of July or whatnot. I don't want to delay, but also there's enough months left in the year.
Yep.
I don't think. But the need for clarity is a good point. Anything else? Seeing none, thank you for that discussion. We did the minutes approval, and we are now on to reports and update, or rather one update from Team Jedi. So Rachel, back to you.
Sure. Let's just find my notes here. So a few things Jedi's working on. We have a parental leave committee that's working right now on looking at some options to propose. We were inspired by Ulster County, who recently passed a resolution for a 12-week parental leave for both birth and adoption for either parent. It's kind of gender neutral and a little more inclusive, and we thought if Tompkins County wants to be an employer of choice, that's the way to go. We're competing with public sector, and a lot of public sector, or private sector, excuse me, companies are going that route. So we're working on that, doing some research right now. We have an allyship bystander training in the works, scheduled tentatively right now for June 23rd. So more information will be coming out about that. The diversity, equity, inclusion policy that some Jedi members worked on will be going to GEO on June 5th. I think that's 2 p.m. And we are still working on planning for the GARE local meeting in October. There's going to be an online training, like a GARE 101 to prep people for the live event October 8th, and then October 20th to the 22nd is the convening. Registration will be opening soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And that's my Jedi update.
Fantastic, thank you. Questions or anything else for Team Jedi? John.
Rachel, just one question. On the 12-week birth and adoption, can you just provide a little more detail as far as how that might work, what you're envisioning?
So we're talking about having 2 or 3 different options to propose. One of those options will likely be a county-paid 12-week option, and then I'm not positive what the other options are. We're still kind of in the research phase there. So we're looking at what other municipalities are doing across New York State and the country. And then we're meeting right now once a week. So we're trying to move pretty quick on this so we can get something in before budget.
You feel that those employees within the county that are represented by a collective bargaining unit, that they may seek to codify this within the parameters of that document, it becomes a mandatory topic of bargaining?
The union contract, you mean?
Yes.
Well, I think if it were something that became county policy, then that would just be county policy. Yeah, please.
Hi, John. Charlene here. We have two individuals who sit on those bargaining units as chair and co-chair, or their hierarchy terminology, forgive me. They are individuals who are well aware of the negotiations process and what happens when they petition for new policies regarding their bargaining unit. And what they shared with us is if it is a county-wide initiative, that falls under their scope, and they are fine with that. And they said that it would be an easy transition for them because it's already offered by the county. So it won't be anything different. The discussion we did have was perhaps a phasing, like a pilot, how we would phase across the bargaining units if we did meet barriers, right? And presenting that along with our proposals so that the folks in administration as well as the legislature would have like a more comprehensive understanding of where our research came from and how we identified those barriers as staff and as those who sit in leadership within those bargaining units. So it looks like it might be a fairly easy move forward with a focus on having the best costs for the county so that it's more attractive for our legislature and our county administration to adopt. Just in all transparency.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Just one other question. That's 12 weeks per parent?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Shauna.
I guess I have a few questions. I have been a non-biological parent for one of our kids, and then I had the other two, and my wife was the non-biological parent, and we had to do adoptions. And I guess the question is, the adoption process for many people takes a long time. Would that need to be in place prior to the time starting, or as long as you're in the process, is that how the time would be distinguished?
So the policies that we're looking at do not consider those factors because you're a parent, right? So it's not contingent upon when you became a parent, as long as when you're taking your leave, you have your documentation that states that this is your child. Okay. So we want to remove any barriers, the semantics. We wanted to remove the semantics, and we saw that Ulster County had done that with this comprehensive approach that is for every parent.
That's great. So I guess the other question I had was, some people have foster children and they go into it, perhaps it just starting as a foster child and then it ending up a person of their family, forever. Mm-hmm. Is that someone who would also be eligible for these benefits?
So as we're doing our research, we're looking at the nuances of that. We haven't identified what other counties are doing, so we might be able to adopt. So we need to do a little bit more research to give you a definitive answer, but we have discussed that piece as well: foster parents, adoptive parents, same-sex parents, things of that nature. We found that some of our staff members are scaffolding their time. So the mom will take time first, and then the dad will take time, or the other spouse will take time. And we want to encourage, at least this is what the staff, they're seeking to encourage that both parents get to take off, right, and to be with their families at the same time. And we also saw in some of our research, and Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, that some of our parents are taking all of their vacation time. Mm-hmm. And then when they return, basic necessities such as a doctor's appointment becomes very, very hard for them. So we're looking at all the different ways we might be able to approach it, where it's all encompassing, but we're still in the research process where, we meet every week and we discuss these things. And so hopefully by the time we get to the proposal, we would have addressed that piece.
That's great. I'm so happy to see this. Yeah. This is really nice.
Thank you for those. John, you have something else?
So with this, how would this work in conjunction with FMLA, specifically as it relates to the birth of a child? Would this be in addition to what the eligibility parameters are for the birth of a child under FMLA, or what are you envisioning?
I mean, at this point, I think that would be one of our options. But again, we're still just in a research phase. We have a few ideas about what they could be, but we're not certain yet. So I hate to say in a public meeting, these are the options, because we're not quite there yet. But we have had, in the beginning, we had a lot of like, wait, are we talking family leave or are we talking parental leave? And so we're like trying to stay focused on parental leave, knowing that the FMLA is in the background and happening, and some people will utilize that, and how will it be utilized? And will there be like a gap where the county, if someone's using FMLA, the county comes in and provides a gap for, so that they're receiving full pay for the time that they take. I don't know. These are all options that we're discussing and looking at. So, yeah.
Yeah, Shauna?
I think one of the other parts too is that typically, sometimes whenever people go the route of adoption, it could cost a lot of money. And so they don't always have the time once they have the child to take time off of work, because they've gone through infertility treatments or whatever their path might be. And so, if someone could be paid and be able to have that bonding time with their child and not worry about losing their job or, not getting paid, I think that's the reason why most people don't take the 12 weeks, is because they can't pay their bills. And so if we could help out in that way, I think it would go really far with our employees that need it.
And just one more piece, I'm so happy that you guys are excited about it. Everyone's so excited, because we also see this at the state and federal level. This is something that's already supported all the way through the public sector in our arena. So it's really nice to see the excitement around it. And we hope that, the staff are able to present a proposal that is attractive and easily implemented. The word is escaping me. You guys know what I mean. Okay. We can implement it easily, excuse me. Towards the end of the day, it gets hard, for the legislature and for the county administration.
Yes, thank you. Really glad you're working on this. And I really appreciated this discussion, hearing folks with different experiences around parenting weighing in with observations and questions. Anything else for Team Jedi? Seeing none, next is the Chief Equity and Diversity Officer report.
Okay.
And you've got stuff.
I do. I have something that I would like to present today. Before I present, I'd like to also share about the DEI policy, the update for the policy. I want to be very, very intentional about uplifting the individuals who really helped with this policy. And one of them is on the call, Joan, our beloved Joan. Thank you for sharing your gifts, your talents, just your passion, and being open to this equity lens that we were bringing to the county and infusing that. I hope when you guys see the finished product, you see what our staff were looking for. We found that this policy intersects with almost 12 other administrative policies here at the county. We pulled everything together into one central space, and it really highlights and centers the experiences of the people that we want to be reflected in the policy. So I'm just really, really excited about it. And I hope that when you guys see it, you're just as excited. We also took it through a law review based on where we are in our landscape, and we feel really, really confident about this policy. So it's an update to an already existing policy, but we made sure it went through an equity lens. All right, I'm going to share my screen. I'd just like to take a few moments of your time. As you guys know, with the adoption of the institutionalizing equity report, we are looking to build a baseline for data related to equity indicators across our organization. And we created a master list, and it was developed to identify and track equity-focused efforts. Our goal is to better understand how our departments are integrating equity into their practices. And so right now, I'm going to share some preliminary trends that we have found just from the initial collection of our equity indicators. Our largest trend is service access and delivery, which is a complete alignment with our strategic plan. Our strategic plan is one of our organizational objectives is equitable service delivery. And so it's nice to see that our department heads have also prioritized that. And the data that's being tracked is accessibility of services, airport, clerk's office. Those were the ones that were really thinking about that, and ADA compliance. So folks are really thinking about how different intersections of identity are accessing our services and what can we do to improve that. The next highest trend was community engagement. Some of our departments are focusing on community events, stakeholder engagement, especially in youth and recycling programs. Our recycling department is really seeking to have more access to the understanding and education around recycling and a management of that, and they're really dedicated to that through our equity indicator initiative, so they will be tracking that. The next one is workforce. I'm sorry. Yes.
I have a question. I was just wondering, these are self-reported?
Yes, the department heads reported them to county administration, and we have a master list, and they also are being tracked in their KPI data.
So most departments did not report. Is that right?
No, almost all of our departments reported,
Okay.
plus or minus 2 or 3 departments that are still pending.
Okay.
So overall, if you scroll to the second page, which I'll share with you, overall we have 34 indicators that have been selected. 8 departments selected 1, 13 departments selected 2, and 1 department selected 3.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So that's a more comprehensive understanding. So the table above just shows the number of departments that fall into this specific trend. So we have 7 departments that fall into service access and delivery. This is aggregated. This is not disaggregated.
Okay.
So I just took high-level themes.
Okay.
So that we can kind of see where our departments, what's the direction that our departments are going in. And then later, as we continue developing an understanding and collecting some of the data from our department heads, we'll be able to see a more in-depth analysis. But right now, this is just baseline.
Yeah, I would love to see what departments are excited about this and implementing.
Yes.
Versus some that might need some help.
So I'd like to discuss that after this presentation because this was created for that reason.
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next one is workforce equity. Folks are looking at the percentage of diverse hires, employee retention, inclusive advancement programs, training and capacity, data collection and use, internal operations and procurement equity was also another one, and then leadership and accountability and transparency. So we have 3 departments that are focused on transparent policies, equity-aligned leadership practices, and just taking a more comprehensive approach to the ways in which we set up our operations for our staff to engage in. And so, as I showed you before, this is just a high-level overview. We have 34 equity indicators in total across our organization currently that our department heads are tracking. A few of those departments are the following. I wanted to make sure I highlighted them. The Department of Social Services has a strong commitment to equity trainings and building internal equity groups. They'll be focused on that. Facilities, they're actively tracking their MWB contract participation and their collaborations on workforce advancement. County administration will be heavily focusing on training completion rates and aligning our policies with equity goals. Whole Health, they're implementing a demographic data toolkit, and they want to conduct cultural alignment assessments. And then, as I stated before, recycling and materials management, they're focusing on equitable community engagement and access to environmental services specifically. As I stated, these are in aggregate form. They're not disaggregated because the departments themselves will be able to report on a disaggregated approach to you. I also wanted to highlight through my lens and the analysis that I'm currently engaged in terms of how do we report on what we're doing in related to our equity indicators. There are some opportunities for growth, and some of them include expanding our indicators, addressing language access, and translation services across departments. That is one of our executive orders in New York State, our LEP, and we do a really good job at that, but just thinking about a more strategic approach to that. The next one is developing and formalizing community outreach and engagement strategies for a unified approach across the organization. This is fragmented in some ways. Departments are engaging in community outreach in their respective scopes, but I see the equity indicator landscape as an opportunity for us to have a unified approach to that, where the entire organization addresses community engagement the same way. And then lastly, increasing attention to data collection and the disaggregation across service lines to inform policy and operations. So the goal is that our department heads take the analysis of their data and use that to inform any policies or operations that might be present within their departments. And then we, as county administration and the legislature, also align with that through our strategic plan. So I'll stop there because I know I talk a lot. And if you have any questions, we can talk.
I have a quick question, then we'll open it up. What does service lines mean?
Service lines are our equitable service delivery. So those departments that are front facing, the departments that are providing services directly to the community. Those will be our service. Those would be called our service lines. So we would be able to extract those departments and look at what they are collecting over a period of time and then identify where we might see gaps or trends in our service delivery.
So when you say disaggregation across service lines, it's like separating out data department by department?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, comments for Charlene? Annie?
Yeah, thank you for putting this all together so we can see this. Is very helpful. One thing I was wondering if you wanted to share, because I know you've supported the departments in this, if you would like to just say a couple words about that.
Yeah, our department heads took this seriously. We introduced this to the department heads before we brought it anywhere else. And I say we, like myself and the former county administrator, the deputies, and the former communications director. We had several strategy sessions with department heads about what was coming, right? What was the purpose of our equity indicator initiative, and how did that align with our strategic plan to bring the strategic plan alive and also meet the goal of embedding equity across our operations. The department heads did excellent work because they had already been doing this. We just put a name to what they were doing and gave them a metric to measure over a period of time so that they can see, what's happening related to this embedding equity goal. So we didn't leave them without any context on why they would be tracking. And once they identified and put a name to it, it became easy for them. They were like, oh yeah, we have been doing this. We were able to track this. This makes sense, and it makes sense to align this with our strategic plan. Some department heads met with me and we had strategy sessions, and others were very independent and already knew what they were going to be tracking over a period of time. As you can see, we have one department that chose 3 equity indicators because those indicators were already present in the scope of their work, and they had already been tracking that over a period of time. At least about a year and a half, they had been tracking that. So they were able to name it, they were able to share it with us, and it's been rather pleasant to see how excited they've been about reporting what they've already been doing related to equity, which is a statement to the 20-year history of equity and diversity at the county. The work it's been done, but now we can centralize the process, put a name to it, and then track it to make sure that we're having the intended impact over a period of time. So working with the department heads has been amazing. They are rock stars, and they're the only reason why I'm even able to present this equity trend in this way to you, because they took it seriously and they did a great job.
Great. Can I ask one more question? So you're presenting this in a very positive way, which I appreciate. I always, hope that we can be positive what we've done,
yes,
what's already been done you're talking about, and putting this together so we can track it. Part of it is to give us credit in a way, but also, and you said about, are we doing what we intend to do or what we want to do? And so did you find while you were doing this that some departments maybe weren't, but just needed this to help add this to what they were doing? Add this aspect of equity?
Yes, I mean, in all transparency, there were some folks who were like, I don't know, Charlene. I don't know. But it wasn't a contentious, I don't know. It was, help me, please. Right? Because, help me, because I know I'm the content expert in my field, but I know you're the content expert in yours, and there's a fusion here. I haven't identified the gap yet. Could you help bridge it for me? And so we went into those strategic sessions open to even the difficult conversations around, maybe there was resistance, right? I did get some resistance. Like, Charlene, I don't think I don't want to do that, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I understand you might not want to do that, but is that because of discomfort or is that because of, right? So we started to break down the reasons for some of the resistance, and then we were able to come to a consensus that it is important, you care about it, you have to kind of move in this direction in order to, so that we can see what's happening and we can actually measure what our impacts are. Once we were able to break it down like that, department heads were fully on board. Excuse me. For the ones who had a little bit of resistance. But the resistance wasn't because of I'm openly not wanting to do DEI. It was more about that bridge work. Like, I've never had to do it this way before. This is a new way of operating. I need a little bit of assistance in that. And so after we broke it down, it was pretty much smooth sailing after that.
Well, a big thank you to you and to all our departments.
Yes, thank you.
Other questions or comments on the equity indicators? I'll say thank you for this presentation, and I appreciate that while at other times we're paying attention to the individual equity indicators in individual departments, and you did highlight some, but I am valuing how you're talking about it without specifying departments to allow us to see the broader picture across the organization without getting distracted by thinking about this department or the other. that we already have we already have plenty of thoughts about every department that don't necessarily go through an equity lens, because that's not what I and most of us have had. I have a couple other questions. One, such a small one, but it's going to bother me because I'm a math person. The numbers don't add up. The numbers of indicators selected seem to add up to 37, not 34. Am I missing something?
No.
No.
I thought I fixed that.
Okay.
That's typo.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for catching it. And you know, when I was making the document, I said, let me make sure I get this math right because I know Veronica's coming for me. And I still, thanks for catching that. I will update that, and Jordan, because this is going to GO next week, so I appreciate that. There are 34 indicators. I knew it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, again, not super important. Is the equity indicators master list a public thing, either to the public or internal to?
So the master list is internal to our department heads and to county administration or any legislator that is interested in seeing it. We are going to report on the data as in increments based on what our key performance indicators are through the strategic plan. So we're not going to independently report on that data. It's going to be integrated into our reporting through the strategic plan moving forward, because this is a part of the strategic plan. So there are equity indicators that are also embedded in the strategic plan, and those will be reported publicly, and then we will have a dashboard, I believe, that folks will have access to. At least that's the aspiration. Maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud. But we do want the public to have access to what we're working on. So this high level trends will be on our website so folks can take a look at what we're working on. But the more nuanced data, like the hard data, will be reported through the strategic plan reporting structure.
Okay, thank you. So this maybe colors my final question, which is that in the inaugural institutionalizing equity report, there was mention that in 2025, departments would report equity indicators to their legislative program committees, which has, at least in the ones I sit on, has happened, and also to WDIC in 2025, either through a presentation or written report. Is that still happening? And if so, you are much closer to this process than, say, I am. Should we go about receiving or requesting such reports if this advisory committee is still to be a place for that?
So this is where I wanted to discuss this. I'm glad that you brought this up because I want to propose that question to WDIC. So I'm glad you're asking me, but I'd like to report it to you. I'll give you some context. Department heads are well aware that WDIC would like to have some sort of understanding of what they're doing in their departments in disaggregate form, right? So equity indicators, what their metrics are, things of that nature. When we initially discussed this, Veronica, there was a conversation about a process, right? So what would that process be? I'm offering to be the liaison between WDIC and our department heads and present clusters of departments to you. So maybe we go by organizational excellence, and all the departments that have an equity indicator under organizational excellence either come here and present or send over a snapshot or whatever their mode of presentation is, they will be able to do that. And then we could move to equitable service delivery, and we can go based on each priority area of our strategic plan, and I will cluster those departments so that we have a more scaffolded approach. But if there is another process that you all would like to go through, then we can. But department heads are well aware that they will be presenting to WDIC specifically related to the equity indicators. I was very transparent.
Shauna?
I mean, I guess the question that I have is, at what point does this cross over to operations? In which case legislators should not be part of the operations of the county. I mean, I think the legislature, our role is to create policy and priorities and voice the needs of our constituents. And I think we've made it very clear that as a county, we value diversity, equity, inclusion. That's why we have this committee. That's why we have JEDI. And so I guess it's, at some point, my question, I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit, is, you know, we trust that our county administration are going to be the ones that hold our staff accountable. That's not really our job. And so I guess the question is, I remember whenever Jason Molina was here, he would always say, tell me where you want to land and I'll be the one to figure it out. Like, that's my operations, that's my job. And so I think, you know, in my mind, whenever I think about this committee, I think about us saying, here's where we want to land, and then telling Corsa, or, you know, asking Corsa or Norma or Bridget or you, Charlene, to say, here's where we would like to land as a county, can you get us there? Mm-hmm. And leaving that responsibility to you. I also don't want it to be a platform where some of our staff that aren't comfortable with, they aren't comfortable with our lingo. You know, the five of us around this table and the ones on the call, we're all comfortable having these conversations, but there are many of our staff who aren't comfortable having these conversations. And that's not to mean that their heart's not in it. Some people just don't know better, and we're trying to educate them. And I don't want this to be like a firing squad. And I'm not saying that any of us would do that, but I don't want this to have a negative impression of their view of the DEI work that we're really passionate about. And so, I mean, I guess those are my concerns. Like, maybe we should make this a commitment to upholding our county values, but maybe we should also make this part of Corsa's job for the accountability.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. The scope for the department heads, though, in this context and what has been communicated with them, is that we're here to champion the work. And so they come and they present, and our job, well, your job as WDIC is to provide tangible feedback that can help them achieve their goal. And some of our department heads are really proud of their work, and they will come and present, while the others may be able to provide a one-pager, and you know, we can just discuss the one-pager here. Like, these are really great things and what those ideas are. And I, like I said, I play the liaison and I bring it back to them. That is what at least the previous administrator and I and the team had discussed with the department heads. So they know that this is not going to be like a critical space, because, I mean, what can we really be critical about? They're the scope experts, and they're just coming to us sharing the great work that they're doing in their department. And so I feel like as a group, it would be important for us to just lay the foundation. Like, we're here to help. If you don't have anything good to say, like my mom would say, then don't say anything at all, right? Because they need help. Like, I don't know if you mind me using you as an example. So Rachel is the executive deputy clerk. I want to make sure I get your title right. The executive deputy clerk. So she and I engaged in strategy sessions around, well, what would we do, right? Because a lot of their work is digital. They have multiple departments and some under the state. You know, there's a lot. And when we discussed what they would do, they really focused on access for their clients. Like, what does it look like when I walk into this space? So imagine she came here and she shared our equity indicators. What does it look like when someone walks into this space? Us as WDIC, we want to say, well, hey, when I went there, you know, like Greg gave DMV, I gave DMV a shout out, 30 minutes, I was in and out. That type of feedback is going to help this particular department head or executive deputy that's going to help them define and develop that lens to analyze the data that they're receiving, your qualitative, stories. And that's positive. And I want us to stay there because this is about ensuring that our department heads feel supported while also providing that additional context that sometimes we're not able to get because we're not able to strategize together, right? I hope I just want to be, look on the lines of positive, but I agree about Corsa and the accountability piece, but that's not what this is for. It's like, show me what you're doing, and then let us help you if you need help.
Okay, good.
And then another piece I'm thinking of is when we enter our KPIs, they tied in equity indicators to that this year, even though, when we put them in for 2024, they said, what's your equity? And we put our equity indicators there also. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, there is a part of OpenGov that is public, and that will be publicly available. All the department's KPIs and equity indicators, maybe not all of the disaggregated data.
Yes.
But so that will be out there and available to people as well.
Yes, that's the reporting structure for the equity indicators for the public, that process she just mentioned. This would be, come and give us a 10-minute presentation. Let's bounce ideas off of each other. Great work, thank you for sharing. It's an additional context to the data that's already available. So I love that you brought that up. Thank you, Rachel. It's just another support structure for our department heads versus this punitive space. Yeah,
That's good, thank you.
And also, I think I would at least feel comfortable sharing with this group, challenges that I'm having with collecting our equity indicators and maybe feedback that we're getting from the community via the survey that we have. And so I hope that other departments would feel comfortable doing that too and come here and say, hey, these are the challenges we're encountering. Help me brainstorm what we can do to make this better or find a better way to collect this information.
That's great. Thank you.
That's a good point. If a department leader wants that and asks for feedback, this could be a good place for it. Another thing I just wanted to add on to the conversation is that that's from my legislator seat, I think it'd be helpful to see more information about the department equity indicators presented here, simply to inform this committee. If we're supposed to be advising the legislature and county around equity and inclusion and diversity and issues, it's helpful to know more what is even going on in the county. So more of a this committee being a listener and learner as opposed to a evaluator and critiquer.
Yeah.
Other things? Charlene, I'd love to happily accept your offer to be the liaison between department heads and this committee. So I think however you in that role think is best to schedule reporting to us or any presenting, whether from you or others. Certainly, like you said, if there are department heads or others who would like to show off the equity work they are doing and want a forum in which to present it,
yes,
I think this would be great and we would love to have them. Do you have a recommendation on how we could go about scheduling any of such things that would need to happen in meetings, given that there are 6 meetings left, which is a lot, and also not?
Yes, I would say maybe we can pick 4 to 5 departments, right, for the next 4 months and give them 10 minutes to come and just share what they've been doing and just be in community, right? Maybe there is no feedback. Maybe, it's just being in community about what their work is. I can think of 4 or 5 departments right now that would be happy to come and share. what they're doing and lead a conversation about their area of expertise.
That sounds great. And we can connect offline.
Yes, we can connect offline.
Annie?
Yeah, if I can add that attending several or many advisory boards over the years, I've been a legislator. This is a similar thing that happens with that staff come to the different advisory boards and sometimes give them a presentation or talk to them about a certain topic, and that helps inform the advisory board of what's going on. So it helps give them information, not necessarily at all that they're telling them what to do or evaluating their work, but it really helps with so that we can all work together.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Charlene, do you have anything else for us?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, moving on, I had one thing that is put under Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, which I mean to be brief. It says website update, and what I am referring to is within the equity realm of the website that I believe is your domain, Charlene. There is, as we saw, the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion page. If anyone wants me to share screen on it, I can do that, let me know, but you can go there yourselves as well. And I think since there is a page, I want members of this committee to have the option to suggest what, if anything, additional should be on it. I think a couple of things that just need to be updated is one, the updated member list, which is mundane but needs updating. Two, and I'm gonna look to Jordan to correct or steer me correctly on this, but we've had some ambiguity over whether WDIC is an advisory committee or a committee or what its official name should be. And I think we landed that it's not a committee in the same way that, for instance, the Health and Human Services Committee is a standing committee of the legislature, but it's also not just an advisory board. So someone started calling it an advisory committee, and I think that is where, at least like Jordan and I talking, landed that advisory committee is a good name for this committee. Now that said, we all call it WDIC all the time, and I don't see the need to change that acronym unless that's confusing. But when it's written out in words or just referred to as a blank, I think advisory committee is the way that we ought to go. But if there are objections or questions, I'd love to entertain them now.
I like advisory committee as a classification, and I don't want to rebrand.
Could I?
Yes.
Just one note. WDIC was created via resolution. So if you're changing the title, we would need to update that officially. Charlene and I had spoken when she updated the website. The one part of the website says this advisory committee meets on, but the title at the top has been kept the same, which was a recommendation that the clerk of the legislature and I agreed upon last week. But the website is updated and it is chef's kiss, Charlene. Good job.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, and the members are all updated. I just didn't refresh my page. Could you add that Ann Corman is the vice chair?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so we would need a resolution to formally change the name of it.
You wouldn't need to rewrite a resolution. I believe you would amend the one that had created WDIC. And I can formulate the steps for that offline later on after I talk to Katrina.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
Thanks. So then also going back to the website, I had wondered, would we want to put the onboarding packet on here? Would we want to put the purpose of the committee explicitly on here as stated in, I guess in the bylaws would be the place to pull from? Would we want to put a link to apply to join the committee as long as there are vacancies on it, which there currently are? Those are three things that I could see adding, two of which are easy. Rachel.
I would say no need to put the onboarding on the website. That's for members as they join. What were the other two things? I lost them already.
Purpose of the committee and a link to applications to.
Is there a digital application? It's a paper.
No, it's,
right?
Is
there?
There's at least a link to the paper form, but.
So the application as it stands is not something that you can fill out online.
Right.
We are working with ITS on that in the near future. It's on our goals for the year. And the only reason I know that is because advisory boards are on my objectives. There is the link to it, as well as when you go to the general advisory board page, there's a description of what WDIC does and the way to apply and how to get it back to our office.
I'd say that's good then.
Okay,
That's my opinion.
that's good as in like, put a link on the WC website or don't do anything because everything is fine.
oh, there's not a link there? I'm sorry, jump in. Are you saying there's not a link to the,
There is on the advisory board web page. So anyone who wants to join an advisory board would hopefully land there.
Yeah, and that can be found in the subsection of the Tompkins County Legislature page.
but it wouldn't hurt to have it there also if we want to make it easier for people to be able to join.
Okay, we can figure that out offline unless someone has strong opinions to voice now.
Okay.
Anyone have other thoughts about the WDIC page?
I would think about going back to last year's meeting with Dominic. There were a plethora of ideas that came out of that meeting about the website, especially at WDIC's website and what should be on there. And I think a review of that meeting might be able to, you might be able to utilize some of those ideas, because the current page that you're looking at is just a crawl of what WDIC's page already looked like. Nothing had been changed besides the update of the members at the time. So I think it's worth taking a look at that meeting again.
Thank you. Other comments? Going once? Twice? Gone. All right. Moving on to discussion items. Only one intended to be potentially meaty, which is the climate survey preparation. I had some, I guess, background info to reiterate for anyone who wasn't here when we talked about this at length 1 year ago, but I've maybe been talking too much. So if anyone's already come with stuff to say and wants to lead off, let me know. Joan.
This is actually why I attended today. I'm very happy that this is on your agenda. Talking about it now sets us up to put together, it's us, it's not us anymore, sorry. Sets you up to be able to put together a good proposal for budget time, and also to be in a position to hit the ground running come January, assuming it gets funded, that you don't have to spend then 3 or 4 months at the beginning of the year prepping for it. So that's all I came to say today. Hope that kicks you off.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And that's very good to hear. I guess I will say, just as a little, try to keep a very quick refresher on something's already been said at this committee. We had heard at a previous meeting this year of the importance of having an independent body do the climate survey. And the importance of reviewing what was done previously and what has changed since then so that we can avoid finding the same findings repeatedly and not changing anything. We had, about the latter, we had an extensive conversation at actually the May 2024 meeting about the previous climate surveys and what had happened since. To very quickly summarize, there was a survey in 2015 and another one in 2018, and lots of things have come out of the findings of the 2018 survey, and various staff teams formed to work on acting on the results. Some things that came out were the monthly all-staff town halls, the launch of the siren alerts, hiring a communications director in more or less its current form, joining GARE, having the Chief Equity and Diversity Officer position, forming Team Jedi. Another check-in survey, not a climate survey, was done in 2021 very much relevant to the time of COVID. Performance evaluation policy was created, and now the performance evaluations per that policy are happening. Values were chosen, and they've since been updated. And things potentially still outstanding are, at least stated by our previous county administrator, was that promoting communication and exchange between departments remains a struggle. Onboarding was commented on as something that that it could be useful to have onboarding that lasts beyond the first day, like something relevant that lasts beyond the first day of onboarding that everyone gets, and it's great, but there's nothing systemic through the whole organization that necessarily lasts after that. I heard we have a strategic plan now, so there were questions about should a climate survey, can it have questions or grounding in the strategic plan and in our values? Heard a need for training around supervising, and also had the comment in 2018, some of the teams doing the survey launch apparently spent a lot of time in talking up the importance of the survey around the organization and got a 70% response rate. But my thought was that if that is so time consuming, that is something that could be planned for and started early, only once we know like what is going to be followed through on. You can't talk up something that we're not sure is going to happen. So that being my summary, what do folks think are some of the next steps, or anything where either this committee can play a role or offer a recommendation to others? Oh, Charlene.
So I think that it might be great for this committee to think about what will be collected in the next climate survey. Perhaps going through the previous questions from 2018 and identifying what we would like to ask in 2025 or 2026 and beyond. I think that would be a great starting place, because that can then inform the scope of how we're going to conduct the survey. Will it be a comprehensive survey or will it be another check-in? I think that'll give us a little bit more context.
Okay, thank you. Other thoughts? Maybe we're all set and whatever happens, happens. Annie?
So we are getting a firm or a group to do this for us, right? Or we're not doing it internally? Or is that not yet decided?
The clear informal preference I heard from this committee was that it's important to get an outside firm to do it, to be like impartial and like a neutral party, to be able to evaluate anything about our organization than trying to do it inside. I'm not aware of any specific actual, but that's just an informal temperature taking of an advisory committee. I'm not aware of any other particular plan in any direction.
And had we allocated money, do you know, in the budget? I thought we had.
No.
No, we didn't.
It
year?
wouldn't be WDIC budget, it would be county admin budget. So I'm pretty sure it's on their radar, so it should be, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with the budget.
I should apologize. I think I may have said 2025 climate survey multiple times because I don't know what year it is. I mean 2026. We're in 2025 now. Joan.
I was just going to share, my memory is that the legislature considered budgeting money for this year and decided not to, but promised to next year. So for the 2026 budget year. That's my memory.
Yep.
Yeah, that we couldn't get it back in.
Shauna.
I think it might be helpful to have a conversation with Ruby. I know that there's an agency called HR1 in Syracuse that does a lot of human resources consulting, and I think this would be right up their alley. And I think the quote we had received last year was like, what, $10,000 maybe? But I think it would be nice to have numbers so that if we need to bring it forward as an OTR, we can do that.
That makes sense. Thank you. And I can follow up with Ruby. John.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
No, I still
can't hear you. Sorry.
How about now?
You're quiet, but yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I think it would be beneficial for everyone on this committee to have a copy of the 18 climate survey report, which gives not only the results from 18, but the comparative data from where they were in 2015, so that everybody has a reference metric of where we have been in the past. And seeing that this is not going to be done, hopefully, until next year, I think contextually we do have to understand from climate survey to climate survey, there's an 8-year period that we are going to be looking at from the last one that was done. And I do think that's relevant in whatever those results are going to look like.
Thank you. Yeah, and we can definitely re-up the link to the previous results in folks' emails, if that's helpful. Anything else on climate survey preparation? All right. I have a few more thoughts, but I can express them in other forums because I'm just one person. So with that, moving on, the other discussion item, more briefly, is upcoming proclamations if we want to follow patterns in previous years. June has typically been declared as Pride Month, LGBTQ Pride Month, or last year, 2S LGBTQI Pride Month, adding two-spirit and intersex. And Juneteenth is also in June. And we have missed the deadline for getting proclamations onto the first June legislature meeting, but the second one is on June 17th. And I think it would be good to have both proclamations there. And that lands, of course, the Juneteenth one before Juneteenth Day, as well as the typical Juneteenth celebration in Southside or in Ithaca. These, this year's proclamations should be submitted by June 3rd, really, to have plenty of time for review. Does anybody want to volunteer to be part of reviewing or updating either or both of them?
You said they need to be submitted by June 3rd?
Ideally, yes. I mean, personally, I've never submitted a proclamation on time in my life, but that's what we're supposed to do.
It's a week before the
June
June 10th.
So,
Or July 10th. Jordan?
the purpose of it is based on the rules of the legislature, is that all legislators have to have the ability to review the proclamation if they can, or propose edits or objections, which means that it has to be submitted before the agenda goes out. So the deadline requested by the clerk was June 5th.
Okay. Oh, June 5th then.
2 extra days, but, and if you would like a copy, whoever is chosen, just let me know. I can send you a copy of last year's. And then, of course, we here will do all of the editing and formatting that we typically do.
Thank you.
You can send it to me. I'll revamp it. That's fine.
Okay. Which one or both? Or
What do we have?
the Pride Month
I'll
and
do both.
Juneteenth?
That's fine.
Okay. Thanks, Shauna. I guess, oh, Jordan, can you send those to her? And can you CC me on that as well? Okay, thank you. And thank you, Shauna. Anything else about proclamations?
Proclamations.
Proclamations, excuse me.
No. Oh, Charlene?
You could add me to that list too.
Got it. All right, if nothing else here, we are on to committee members' reports. Does anyone have anything to share relevant to the work of WDIC? Seeing none, I will just remind folks our next meeting of this advisory committee is Wednesday, June 25th at 3 p.m. And a reminder, as Rachel said, that the equity and inclusion policy, I don't remember its title, please.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. It was updated to DEI, but previously it was DNI.
Yeah, okay. So the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy as revised by Team Jedi and others is going to be up for review at the Government Operations Committee next week, Thursday, June 5th at 2 p.m. And the agenda for that, including the proposed revised policy, should be out in a couple days. All right, last call for announcements. May I have a motion to adjourn? Rachel moves. We don't really need this. Annie seconds. Informally, all in favor. Hooray, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you.